We still need some kind of intro, so I guess I'll just kick it off with. Hey everyone, what's up? Josh and Chris back for episode 2 of the euCreativ show. Last episode, we talked a lot about artistic identity, becoming an artist through creating an identity or identifying as an artist, really. I mean, that's about as...
Yeah. And this is part of yeah. This is part of a larger series where we're talking about how to stay motivated by an artist. So episode 1 was all about identity. Episode 2 today is going to be about what? What are we talking about, Josh?
I guess just the action, because you have to do the verb to be the noun, if that makes sense. Like,
yes,
a writer writes, an artist creates art. A draftsman draws. And that's sort of what we're getting into today, the nitty gritty of doing the verb to be the thing.
The practical portion that connects with our last video. So if you're just picking this one up and you don't know what we're talking about, what identity is, go back to the previous one. Check it out. Yeah.
Episode 1. I kept calling it a flagship episode. It's a pilot episode.
Pilot.
What's
the difference between flagship and pilot?
Flagship means the best.
Oh, okay. We're piloting the flagship.
There we go. I like it. Our first little note here is, what kind of commitment are you willing to make? So if you've already figured out what your identity should be or could be, the next step is really making the commitment to live up to that identity. And commitment's a very strong word.
Yes, definitely. I mean, for many individuals, it's hard to make a commitment to anything, right? Especially when you're young. And I know this because I was young once, and it was hard to commit to anything. So, speaking from experience here. But kind of like we said in the previous episode, if you really want to move forward with something that you're dreaming about, that takes action, right? So you commit to it so you can get to the action. Go all in, but remember the barbell strategy, which is really nice. Actually, which is totally reminds me of a philosopher note in optimize.me I actually went through today. Leadership by Dave Ramsey, who also has a huge podcast following, right?
I believe so. He has a huge following in general for his baby steps finances, which they work. I'll throw that out there. If you're in any sort of financial distress, Dave Ramsey has the wisdom to help you. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, he's a smart guy.
But one of the big ideas in this philosopher note was never go all in, and which is interesting because through the optimized program, they talk a lot about let's go all in. And when we say go all in, it's more of a mental thing. You go all in on commitment, but what Dave Ramsey is talking about here in this quote is more about going all in the physical sense in your life, right? So I'm going to do this quote real quick. It's not too long. He says, when we launch an idea, it has to meet at least 2 minimum financial criteria. 1, we can't borrow money to fund the idea. 2, if it fails, it can't be fatal, meaning if our decision is faulty, it can't have the possible consequences of closing us down. In poker, you call this going all in. Too many businesses have closed as a result of going all in on one decision that they just knew would be a success. I've spent 20 years building this business. I'm not going to risk the whole thing on any one decision, idea, or product line. We never go all in. So I think that's an important distinction. And when we say in this quote, let's go all in on our commitment, but remember the barbell strategy.
Yeah. Now, we discussed this before. The barbell strategy really just means being aggressive and conservative so that you have the fallback, you have the stability. And I can speak personally about ignoring that wonderful piece of wisdom. Uh, so I made, in hindsight, it's a mistake, but it worked out. I got lucky, but I made the mistake of really burning all of my bridges whenever I decided to become an artist, because I wanted to do it full time, and I pursued tattooing full time. That's how I made that leap, and I went all in. I actually got the neck tattoo so that I didn't have any other options once I became a tattoo artist. I never wanted to be regularly employable again, which was a really powerful action, but not a smart one. Since then, I've done my very best to have some sort of financial stability in place before I decide to try something new. It saved me a lot of grief since I discovered that strategy. I wish I'd known it earlier. But it's really important, even if you make a commitment to become something, make sure you keep one foot firmly planted in reality while you step forward into growth. That's really the only safe way to become more creative and more successful over time, rather than trying to do it all at once. I struggled a lot the first year of tattooing because I had no established clientele. I had no backup savings. I burned through all of my credit to get the supplies that I needed to start tattooing, and it hurt for a while. It's only within the past year and a half that I've managed to really get back on my feet, and I'm glad that I did.
I mean, that speaks to a lot of financial things, honestly, because when you make a decision, you make a commitment to something, you're going to be investing time and effort into it. And when you invest financially, they say diversify. You don't want to invest all of your money in one thing and then that tanks, right? So you diversify into multiple different things so that if one goes off, you still have a backup. But what's important is, what we're talking about here is that distinction between a commitment and throwing the rest of your life away just to do this one thing. A good example is exactly how I run my life currently, which is I have a job where I do creative work, UI, UX design for a web development company. And it allows me and my wife to, have enough money so she doesn't have to work and I can do my thing, but it doesn't give me all my time within art. I would love to do just 100% painting, drawing, and be an artist kind of thing. So, but I'm not going to quit my job and put us out on the street just so I can be an artist, which is not making any money right now. And Josh, I like this quote that you added in here by Tim Ferriss, capping the downside, he calls it. I mean, I love that. You cap the downside. What book is that from?
I'm not sure if it's from a book. It's something he mentions a lot in interviews on his podcast. And he's mostly speaking, especially to the way Sir Richard Branson runs his businesses.
Oh, the Virgin owner. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. The way he runs most of his businesses is by capping the downside so that if things go wrong, they can only go so wrong.
Exactly.
So when he was starting Virgin Atlantic, the airline, he leased the planes from Boeing with an agreement to return them if it didn't work out. So he just only had an upside. He could lease the planes for, say, 6 months. And if the company went under, he was really out almost no money. He could just return the planes. It's like, here's your used plane back. Thank you for letting me try that. But without having some sort of fallback or safeguard, you really put your venture at risk. So there either needs to be no downside to trying something like this podcast. There's really no downside. We're out a few hours as we play around and have fun, talk about things that we like to talk about, there's really no downside. And if it works, then we get to help people. So we're capping the downside with this. It's a lesson that I had to learn the very, 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 very hard way. Do as I say, not as I did. That's right.
Yeah, right.
We were very fortunate to never be homeless, but things were very tough for a while, and they didn't have to be. I could have done it slowly and been much safer for it.
It's it's really interesting, because one of the things that we'll probably talk about in the future is how important getting your energy and stress and mind right and a lot of this stuff to show up as an artist, to show up as a creative. And when you burn all your bridges and you kind of say, I need to focus on this, you introduce just an amount of stress into that situation that is almost kind of like
crippling.
Right. It's you're causing a situation that's has a higher percentage of ending in failure. This. It was very unwise, but Charlie Munger is a huge proponent of learning from other people's mistakes so you don't have to learn them yourself. So saying that I made this mistake, and especially having you as a good contrast to that mistake, how to do it the right way versus how I did it the wrong way, I think that speaks volumes to hopefully the people listening, that you don't have to burn all of your bridges. You don't have to put all of your eggs in one basket. You just have to make a commitment to make things and then take it from there. There's kind of a mental commitment to a mental overcommitment that happens in a lot of ways. I remember as a younger artist, probably about 10 or 15 years ago, I was deep into classes with finishing up with school. I had an artist buddy in Florida that we were doing landscape paintings and portrait paintings and figure paintings. We were just deep into art all the time. And I remember making the comment to him, and he agreed. I think he said the same thing to me. It was like, yeah, if I can't spend an hour a day on, more than an hour a day on art, it's kind of worthless. And I would say that kind of idea was crippling to me. I think a lot of individuals think about this, where, if I'm going to commit to it, it has to be more than X time a day, or it doesn't mean anything. I'm all about making the longevity commitment, right? So, and this is where things change your life. So on January 1st, individuals go into the gym and they're like, I'm going to get thin, build muscle, and be super healthy. And then they go hardcore. And then a month later, it's burnoutsville. They can't sustain that. But the other individuals that say, I'm just going to start a little bit, and I'm making this mental commitment to do it the rest of my life, every single day, but just, show up every single day is what I can do. I think that's important. And that's the longevity of it's more important than making this huge leap forward, right?
Yeah, personal trainers speak to that a lot, actually. The consistency over intensity principle. It's better to do something a little bit every day than it is to go really, 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 really hard one day a week.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's burnout, and that's where you're going to end up hurting yourself. And yeah, same thing with art. It's like, no, I have to spend 8 hours today, or it's worthless, right? No, spend a half an hour every single day for the rest of your life. It's so much more important than 5 hours every single day.
All right. So up to this point, we've been talking a whole lot about career choices, sort of, and capping the downside with your practice. But the entire point of this episode is really to give you some practical advice on how to do the verb to become the noun. So when it comes to being an artist, you really do need to visualize what it is that you want to be, and then break down the steps of how to get there one day. And one day could be any amount of time, any sufficiently long amount of time, if we're being honest. So one of the really great exercises to figure that out is, actually, we mentioned it last episode, beginning with the end in mind. and really visualizing where you want to be at the end of your life, who you want to be, and what you want to be known for or known as. So beginning with the end in mind is really about feeling and seeing what you want to accomplish in your life and what that end goal, preferably intrinsic, what that end goal looks like for you. And then figuring out how to get there, really. It's a really creative act.
Yeah, talk a little bit about intrinsic versus extrinsic.
So intrinsic goals are process goals, loving the process more than the end result. It's something internal to you. Extrinsic goals are the goals where, you want this thing, you want this money, you want this ability. And intrinsic goals tend to work out better because you have more control over them. Whereas extrinsic goals, you have influence over, but not control over.
And I think this is a hard concept for a lot of individuals, but honestly, I think there's a play between the two. There's a balance between the two. You must have the intrinsic to continually work the process to get to the end, whatever, right? So for example, my end goal is to have a fully realized artistic vision in a body of work, like a large body of work. And then hopefully that sells, it goes into galleries, blah, 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 blah. Do I have control over if it sells, if it goes into galleries, or, what it looks like, sort of, not at the very end, but I do have control over the steps I take to get there, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where it comes down to the difference between control and influence. So you can influence the end result, but there are no guarantees with those extrinsic goals. If you don't do the art, it won't sell, though. And that is the thing that you do have control over.
Exactly. And yeah, this part about it is, it's that day you wake up and you realize, wow, I really want, at the end of my life, before I die, when I'm 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, hopefully that's what I'm shooting for, over 100. When I'm 100 years old it's like, okay, I'm on my way out. I have this vision of what I want to have accomplished. Because if I haven't gotten or worked towards it, or at least gotten there, and I know that I can, it would be just full of just tremendous regret. I mean, we only have one single life, so what do you get clarity on that, right? Feel deep into that, begin with that end in mind, and know that probably the biggest, the biggest practical part of this whole talk is, like Josh was saying, that action. Take action today to work towards that. Because if you don't take the action, there's no way you can get there.
So last week was all about the conceptual identity side of things, but I've said it probably 5 times already. If you don't do the thing to get what you want, you can't get what you want. Verb, action, take some sort of action, and don't delay on it. There are things you could do this very minute that could move you one baby step closer to that end of life intrinsic goal that you have. It's just figuring out what that baby action is.
Yeah, and there's some difficulties there. And this is our next point. Break your wildly important goal into smaller goals, smaller steps. This was really powerful for me, was getting clarity on what I want to happen, which is this crazy goal that's out there. It seems crazy at the time, but usually you want it to be somewhat crazy. You want to stretch. You don't want it to be, I want to create a painting. Like, you can do that. That's easy. You're not going out of your comfort zone. Say I want a painting to be into a museum before I die. Now that is huge,
Yeah.
This kind of thing. So then you think, okay, well, what do I need to be, what do I need to accomplish, or where do I need to be in 10 years or 20 years to be on my way to that? Because this is maybe 50, 60, 70 years down the road. But let's look at 10 years. Okay, if I want a painting that is that good, I have to have the skills to do it. I have to have the time to work to build those skills. All these kind of things, these practical things you have to work with. And so, at 10 years, I need to be at this amount of skill. I need to have this amount of time, and probably make this amount of money with it, blah, 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 blah. And then you break that in half. You go, well, where could I be at in 5 years to show that I'm actually reaching a 10-year goal? And then you break it down to 2 years, and then 1 year. And then ultimately, the most important, what can I do today to take a step to that? It's a quote from some wisdom that I saw, great years are made of great days, and great days are made of great moments. It all starts with a moment. You want a great year? Start right now with a great moment and make up a great day. And then repeat forever.
So there's the next point, actually, is repeat. So whatever you could do today, you also need to feasibly be able to do that tomorrow and the day after and the day after, which is where the real daily practice comes in. Once you have these big goals and you break it down to, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year today, make sure that what you're doing today, you can repeat consistently to reach that 1 year goal, which is where really rubbing it up against reality comes in. So understanding what your current restraints are is really important when it comes to making that commitment to a daily practice. I have a floor, and you have a floor as well. And I'll actually let you explain.
I was actually going to bring this up. I was like, hey, why don't we give examples of our daily practices, right? Because this is so important. This is the most practical thing we can do, is what we can do daily to get to and to be that repeated being is our identity, work towards our huge goals, become actualized, this kind of thing. So floors and ceilings. This was a huge change in my life, was realizing that if I wanted to be an artist, if I wanted to continue to be an artist and get to the goals that I want to do, I have to do it daily. And then you think, there's some days I want to fly overseas, right? I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get ready, get to the airport by 5 o'clock. I'm flying all day. I get there. It's a different time zone, and you just go to bed because you're so freaking tired. How can I do art on that day? I can't do a painting because, oil paints, I can't do an oil painting. I've seen James Gurney do paints on a plane like crazy. He's pretty amazing. Look at James Gurney for simple and easy practices that you can do all the time. But I'd done it down even further. What if I forgot my materials? What if I just didn't feel like it? Plus I was super tired or whatever. What is the floor smallest thing where I can show up without fail, no matter what, and gather that win? And for me, it was just 30 minutes of some kind of sketch. And the only rule there is I have to look at something and translate it on paper somehow. So whether that's from memory, from a visual item, but I'm translating, through my brain, through my hand, out onto paper or whatever it is at the time. So I could forget, all my supplies, borrow a pen from somebody, get a napkin, and do my 30-minute drawing, and then take a photo of it and then celebrate that. So that's my floor. And that's so that you can win every single day, that you can say, I made one baby step towards my commitment, which is super important. I could go on for this about forever, but we don't want to forget about ceilings too. So the days when you're at home, when you've gotten crazy amount of sleep, you're super motivated, maybe you watch some awesome podcast or listen to an amazing podcast by a couple of individuals that know this stuff. Could be us, could be someone else. And you're so motivated that you just want to get started now. Well, what is your ceiling that day? Is it 4 hours of continuous, art creation with breaks every 30 minutes because keep healthy, that's important, this kind of thing. That's your ceiling, right? You're not going to do ceilings every day. And believe me, when you set your ceiling, because I've done this for years, I'm like, I could do 6 hours. Yeah, that's gotten smaller each and every few months. It's like, yeah, that's not happening. Right now, I track my art time, and this year has been last year was probably one of the most productive years ever. And I probably average around 3 hours a day. There's been days when it was 8 hours. of art time, but the average throughout is probably 3 hours. But what's important is setting that floor and ceiling. I always think that the floor is more important than the ceiling, because the floor will lower your commitment so much that it will always fit your motivation and your abilities, or whatever you're feeling that day, and keep you moving forward.
I have a very similar practice, but when it comes to drawing specifically, I have a much lower floor because I did want it to be incredibly easy. No matter how overwhelmed I was getting with family, no matter how overwhelmed I was getting with business, I needed to be able to do it every single day. So my floor for drawing is just a warm-up page. As long as I keep my dexterity moving forward all the time consistently, I can celebrate that.
Yeah.
That being said, I am also a tattoo artist. So my job is to create, which sort of brings us back to the original conversation. I will say one of the bonuses of having a production art career is that it does force you to develop your skill, like your technical ability. So that is a bonus. Even if you're doing it for someone else, your technical ability is increasing every single time. But that's an old conversation. Moving forward, my daily commitment is much smaller. And sometimes it boils down to, I'm going to color with my son today. I'm going to have some deep love time with my family while I'm being creative. But outside of art, I also track what amount of time I'm spending every day being creative in general. How much time am I spending making something, whether it's editing the podcast or editing videos, filming, writing blog posts and emails to subscribers. I track my generalized creative time as well, because I do believe there is some amount of creative cross-training that happens. The more creative you are in one area of your life, the more creative you can be in every area of your life.
And, I have a similar practice daily thing. Beyond just, I must do 30 minutes of art a day. I'm in the middle of a drawing project right now, Fandom Fitness, where I basically do drawings of prominent individuals in fandoms, like Spock from Star Wars, or Harry Potter from the Harry Potter series, this kind of thing. And I'm working on Steve Irwin, which is right above my head right there. Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter.
Just for clarification, that is Spock from Star Trek. I do not want. Wars? You did, and they will eat us alive.
Because I was thinking about Yoda from Star Wars that I did too, which is really good. So yeah, I know. Oh. I love these fandoms, and that's one reason why I'm doing it. But anyway, so I have this big body of work, right? And so the daily thing is I need to get this done, so I spend the time on that. So that's one part of it, and then I want to do a post every single day. So that's another thing that I check off my list. And then I want to do a warm up before I draw every day. So this is part of my art practice, and each one has its importance. Like you said with your warm up, it's all about dexterity, about continuing on, about, just showing up every day. And that could be your minimum. And then I do a minimum amount of drawing every day and break it up, this kind of thing. And then teaching and learning is part of my creative practice, which is pretty huge. So I usually do some kind of writing or podcasting, this kind of thing, where I'm trying to communicate in some way. Before that, I've kind of stopped it recently, but it was on my posts every day. I was trying to communicate. Now I write a bit. I read every day. I just finished a book, Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp, which is really, really good. Now I've started this book, The Power of Daily Practice by Eric Meisel. And then Josh you gave me a book to buy, and it just sounded up my alley. It was about daily practice also, and I've already bought that, and it's on its way.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis. I mentioned the interview that I found the book in last week. I picked the book up, and I haven't been able to put it down. It's amazing.
Really awesome. I can't wait. So this is all part of the daily practice, and every single thing that I do, it isn't happenstance. I didn't just say, oh, I feel like doing this, I'm going to do it for a while. No, everything works toward that larger goal in my future, end of the life, begin with the end in mind kind of goal, way out there. And even things that we purchase now, me and Patty are doing the same thing. My wife, we think, okay, is the hundreds of dollars that we spend here, is this going to work towards, our creative goals? And that's easy. Usually when you look at money, you think, oh, well, yeah, yes or no. And people can understand that. But probably one of the most important things you invest is your time. So
Yeah.
in part of this, I think probably one of the most influential things that you can do with your life is not just break things down. Like you look at your goal, you break it down to what you can do today and keep doing that in longevity. You also look at what are you doing every day that's not going to get you there. I know this is kind of off of our show note, different than our show notes, but I just thought about it. I'm like, yeah, this is super important too. What shouldn't you do? And I have a good example here. I'm addicted to video games, at least. And I can't say I was because I know about 12-step programs, and you never say you're never addictive anymore, right? You're always. And it still hits me sometimes. I'm like, oh, it'd be so great if I could, and then I have to shut it down. But I had to turn off all video games, uninstall everything, get rid of any kind of, because I was deep into computer games, and, I spent thousands and thousands of dollars in computer games. And it really took me a while to say, this is not, if I continue wasting my time on this, it's not helping me get to my goal. And I would say, looking in the news right now where GameStop is blowing up, is making just billions of dollars recently. If you can't control that, if you can't control what you're doing right now, and certain things like this, could be anything, not just video games. Video games is big for me, but it could be anything for you. And if you do it every single day and it's not going to go for your goal, make that deep commitment like we were talking about before, to say, no, I want to reach the end of my life and have these things accomplished. Yeah, and start today.
You do have to think about what you can do consistently and what you should probably stop doing so consistently. So they do very, very much go hand in hand. It's the same concept as inverting the problem. It's like, oh, well, this is what I want. How do I make sure that I fail at getting that? When you think about it that way, it really does help clarify the things that you shouldn't do based on what you would do if you wanted to fail, which actually brings us to some other points. One thing that you can do if you want to make sure you fail is don't plan for success.
Right.
If you don't make the plan or the commitment, then that's a surefire way to fail. Good job.
Yeah. Don't move forward with it whatsoever. Don't do a daily practice. Don't even try, Yeah, but don't go that route, please. It reminds me, because you can attach any of these ideas to fitness and being healthy, right? So easily, right? So probably one of the biggest proponents you can have to losing weight and being healthy is cutting things out of your diet rather than adding things in, or adding exercise or whatever. That's the first thing that any health professional tells you. Go through your pantry and cut out all the bad stuff, right? That, just logging what you do and cutting out your bad stuff is probably one of the biggest things. There's this funny quote I heard once. It goes something like this. Oh, you want a 6-pack abs? Well, do 10 reps of stop eating all the crap, or something like that. But it was pretty funny. But yeah, cutting out what is not going to get you to your end goal.
Wow. We spent so long describing all of these things when that's really what it boils down to, is don't do the stuff that's holding you back and do more of the stuff that moves you forward.
Exactly. Yeah, man, we could have made this a lot shorter with that. I like this quote by Zig Ziglar, and it's actually from Dave Ramsey's book, Entre Leadership, because Dave Ramsey's quoting him, and Zig Ziglar says, "People say motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend both daily." So yeah.
Reconnecting with that motivation.
And, this is part of the whole daily practice we were talking about. Yeah, it's only 30 minutes. And it's easy to see that, like the warm-up page for Josh or the 30-minute drawing for me or whatever it is, it's easy to see it's worthless. But what that actually does is it keeps you connected in your brain. You keep, I mean, like physically and then scientifically, look at Peak by Anders Ericsson. By repeatedly doing these things daily, you're continuing to make furrows in your brain of thought and continuing to kind of carve those out. You keep connected to your motivation. You do it for 30 minutes. You start thinking of other ideas. You're repeated beingness. I mean, it's a physical and mental change.
Yeah, Jerry Seinfeld, his stand-up practice is basically don't break the chain. So he'll write a new joke every single day, and he doesn't want to break the chain. And it's such a small commitment. And that's key, having a small commitment that you can do every day.
Yeah. And then, this goes back to you tracking it, because he was talking about a red X on the calendar. And I think that is so important. If you want to feel really motivated and just feel like powerful within yourself, just have this celebration going on, start tracking how long you can keep a streak of daily practice. Whatever you want to do to get your goal. Say, I need to do this daily. And then commit to it and then start tracking it. 10, 20, 30. As soon as you get to like 100 or so days, you're like, holy cow, I am not going to break this. Right now, today is day 2,925 for me of daily art. I committed to it. Actually, today's the 27th. Today's the 28th. So the 26th of January, 2013 was the first day I started. So you can do the math on that. 2,900 and something days total.
A whole bunch.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way. I mean, I don't even think about it anymore after that amount of time, because before it was, oh man, I don't want to break the streak. 30 days, I'm still motivated. 100 days, there's no way I'm breaking this streak. Hundreds of days after that, or after 1,000, you're like, yeah, I'm super going strong. Got to focus on it. After about this much, it's so ingrained in me that I don't even think about it. It's just what I do.
I'm up to 105 since I stopped taking Sundays off.
Nice.
So I just hit that 100-day mark a few days ago. Well, today will be 106, but
perfect.
Yeah, this is the first time that I've had a strict daily art practice for this long, and no, I don't break the chain. I refuse.
Especially when you set those floors you're talking about. Always show up. That is so important. Longevity over huge gains is so important. Okay, action items. Here's homework for everyone. First and foremost, think about what you want to be at the end of your life, or what you want to have accomplished, and write it down. Don't just sit there and just think about it while you're driving or whatever, and don't write it down while you're driving either. Be safe while you're driving, but take some time. It doesn't take much time. If you're 20 years old, you're going to have 80 more years of life. If you take an hour to do this, it's nothing. Write down the 25, I think it was Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. He said, write down the 25 top things that you want to complete in your life. Pick the top 5 out of that, and then remove all of the other 20. Not just remove them, but run away from them and never even approach them again. So focus is what he's saying. Have your top 5. Get clarity on that. And then the most important part after that, well, that is the most important part, but other important part is to start breaking it down. Where do I need to be at in 10 years to be reaching that? 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, and then break it down to what can I do today? And just know this, that if you spend the time on it right now, which I think is huge and important, it's not the only time that you'll need to do that. Your life will change. You'll get married. You'll have an extra kid, Josh, Some life change will happen, and then you'll have to rethink this. Your reality will change, and you'll have to rethink it a bit. Getting started on that now, and then understanding that, what you put in stone, what you write down right now isn't in stone, and you're not committing to it. You're committing to it, but it will adjust. But there's a thread that moves through it of that commitment, right? But doing that initially and just getting moving forward, I think, is probably step number one. That's the action item. That's the homework for you guys, at least the first one. Josh, what do you have?
I would say beyond that, once you figure out what that core goal or core set of goals is, figure out what you could practically commit to every day to move you toward each one of those goals, and commit to that practice so you can start tracking your progress. So don't break the chain. Just make that commitment and start moving now.
Right.
Once you've got that goal, once you've got those big life dreams, figure out what you can do every single day to get just a little bit closer, and make that daily action so easy that you don't have an excuse not to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that floor, set the minimum. I would also say with that is with the tracking, which is so important, day one starts today. Keep it simple how you track things at the beginning. You don't have to do like me and figure out how to get a WordPress website going and, get some crazy tracking, because I'm a web developer. This is what I do. Just have a simple calendar, a sheet of paper, put tick marks on a room somewhere, just like you're in a jail cell, right? Whatever, but track it and know that, day one, with a piece of chalk or, a nail that you're into the wall. Yeah. But get moving on that creative habit.
Yeah. I think that's the most practical thing that we could advise people to do. Yeah. That's it. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Right. I was going to say simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Not easy. Don't expect it to be easy, but anything worthwhile is not easy. We have to go through a lot to get there. If it was easy, everybody would be amazing artists. And then it wouldn't be so important because it would just be too easy. Yeah. Yep. All right. I think we can end there.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for episode number 2. This was, as always, a fantastic conversation. I had a ton of fun. And I hope you'll join us for the next episode.
I think the next episode is going to be our wildly important goal and how to keep focused on that versus the whirlwind of crazy life.
Yeah. So we're going to really dig deep on turning away from the extra commitments that might be pulling you away from that big, life-changing, wildly important goal.
Yeah, very important and difficult.
And difficult, yeah.
We're always dealing with it.
Well, I'd rather be honest. It's like when somebody asks, is this tattoo going to hurt? I always tell them, yeah.
Yes. It's a tattoo.
It's a tattoo. Of course it's going to hurt. But yeah, we're not going to sugarcoat it for you. The stuff we're telling you to do is going to be difficult, but worthwhile.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you mean needles in my skin are going to hurt? What? That's another commitment I need to make. Commit to a tattoo. All right, now we're just rambling. We better just cut it off now.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.